Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is, and welcome back. I hope your week is off to an amazing start and you're ready to dig into some business today. We've got a lot to attend to, and of course, everybody's favorite topic, Israel. We got a bunch of it today because we have this cyber director who's very interested in PDF files, who is the subject of a potential criminal complaint. And we've been waiting for this thing to be charged. It has not been charged yet. Others of the bundle of 8 individuals have been charged with a formal official complaint, but not this dude. And so we're going to go through the documents, and I want to shout out Sagar over at Breaking Points for giving these documents out. He posted about this over on X, sharing it right here. Sagar Enjeti, you know who he is. He got the documents. We'll go through them. We'll read it in detail to see exactly what happened. But of course, this is about this dude right here, who they say has been charged. But the question, of course, is when you look at the court docket, as we'll look at, we don't see any evidence of a criminal complaint here at all. And we do see evidence of that for other people like this person, David Joseph Wanacott Yankee. He's got a criminal complaint filed. See that right there? Boom, right there. It's easy. They filed this back on the 16th. Okay, not even had to wait. And same pattern exists. We'll ask ourselves why this person has not been charged yet. And we'll go through what the U.S. attorney in Nevada has to say about it. This woman, U.S. Attorney Chata, who was running for office and had some very interesting videos that she was making when she was running for office. So interesting things happening here. We'll go through it. We'll see what you think about it. This is her video when she was running for office. So we'll go through it. We got reaction. I want to go through the dockets on this thing just to show exactly how off it is. And we'll see what some of the reaction is from, of course, you. Tulsi Gabbard also came out today, and she is nuking the security clearances for 37 current and former professionals, all gone. And I ran through the list, and it's not anybody that really stood out to me, but I'm sure there's some pretty good names on there. And so we'll go through that. We'll see what she said about it before we turn our attention to another lawsuit. Okay, this one just got decided back last week. We had a new decision come out from a judge on this one. The judge is Rossi David Alston Jr. And this case is out of the Eastern District of Virginia. And we've talked about this group, this Jewish Advocacy, National Jewish Advocacy Center, which is this law firm that is, or this actually 501c3 that has been created to combat anti-Semitism by harnessing the power of the legal system in America to combat anti-Semitism. All right. So they sued, and they filed this complaint against a bunch of Muslims, essentially. So it's like Jewish people versus Muslim people, like literally in litigation. It's wild to watch it all happening right here. It's like everybody else have to come to our courts to fight their problems out about foreign conflicts. But all right, so they're suing. So the Jews sue the Muslims, and they filed this big fat complaint. And then we got a ruling today saying that the Muslims win and that the Jewish lawsuit is going to be dismissed. And we'll see what this looks like. And we'll see what happened here, because a lot of people on the Palestinian side are going to be very happy about this ruling. We'll see what happens, if there's an appeal or what. But we'll go through it. We'll see what the latest is on that before we turn our attention over to Chuck Grassley, because he dropped some more documents for us, and this is a pretty horrific one. Apparently, tens of thousands of migrant children were just shoved in unvetted homes, just like, oh yeah, I'll take a couple of boys, sure. Yeah, bring them on over here. I'll be a great parent. Yeah, interesting, right? So horrific. 79,000 kids under the age of 12, no home inspections at all. And Chuck Grassley released the documents. We'll go through them. We'll see what's inside and get some reaction on what the Democrats are up to, because this is what the Democrats are doing out here in their land. All right, so that's what's going on. We'll come back to that. I know. Kennedy and others. And it's going to be just a beautiful stream. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done so. And we appreciate you inviting a friend over as well. That's great too. All right, so let's get into it on the day, because we got some business to attend to. Starting with this case and this situation out of Israel. And here is this question. New documents dropped in the case of Tom Alexandrovich, this cyber director from Israel, who is now the subject of a lot of questions because this probable cause statement says he committed crimes in Las Vegas. Now, he's currently not in the United States anymore. He's now fled the country. He's back in Israel. And we're seeing a bunch of headlines like this, like the Israeli government official is charged with soliciting a 15-year-old girl in Las Vegas. This story coming out over from The Guardian. And of course, this is not exactly accurate. Okay, he was arrested for this crime, but he's not actually been charged formally with a criminal complaint as of yet. And how we know that is because this is the court docket. And I want to do a refresh here while we're together, but this is what I had pulled up right before the show started to see if anything's changed. You can see this is an open case, probable cause, right? It says right here, they're trying to make a determination whether there's going to be a criminal complaint that is ultimately filed. And he has a date, but it's not really a court date. It's kind of like a ticker date so that the courts can come back and say, is this case moving forward or not? We know we have an arrest. We know we have a potential set of charges coming, but we don't have the complaint yet. Once the complaint hits, this will get vacated, okay? Status check on the filing of the complaint. You don't need to have a status check to check the filing of a complaint if it's been filing. If it's been filed, you just remove the ticker. So here, what we see is the progression of this case. And this is for this person, Tom Alexandrovich. And if you compare and contrast that to other individuals who have been charged as a part of this sting operation, you see here a bunch of people. It was 8 dudes in total. David Wanacott Yankee was someone else who also got charged. He's 40. Tom Alexandrovich is 38. And we're seeing them both charged as part of the same operation. Now, what's interesting is that here, the criminal complaint has been filed against this other person. All right, this guy here is called David Joseph Wanacott Yankee, and he's got his criminal complaint filed. It's right there on 8/16. They filed this case. The criminal complaint was filed. The new case has a new CR number, and you can go check that case out because it's going to be a new charge, and they'll follow it along on that docket. So he was charged. We see the same thing happens for basically everybody else. And I pulled them up, but some of them looks like they've refreshed. The court system automatically refreshes them. But you can see the same pattern, okay? This guy is called John Charles Duncan, and he was also part of the sting. And his criminal complaint got filed on 8/17, right? The criminal complaint. This case is closed. See the new CR, the new charging number. But what we see right now, of course, is that this person has not been charged. And so let's do a refresh on this just to make sure that nothing has changed. We hit a refresh button and no, we got a notice of appearance here. David Chesnoff and Richard Schoenfield, who are now going to be on this case, defending this individual, Tom Alexandrovich, against these allegations. And we'll learn more about who those individuals are. Here's one of them, and here is the other one. So we'll come back to that. But the question, of course, is what has the DOJ had to say about this? This was a big operation that we saw was brought by a number of different agencies. FBI, Child Exploitation Task Force, so the feds are there. Las Vegas Metro Police, FBI, North Las Vegas Police, Homeland Security, feds out the wazoo on this operation. And so you'd imagine the DOJ and the U.S. Attorney would also be involved. But what they said is this, from the U.S. Attorney in Nevada, their official website or post, they said last week, Tom Artyom Alexandrovich was arrested in a Nevada Internet Crimes Against Children joint operation, and he was booked into the Henderson Detention Center. This important multi-agency operation targeted child predators who preyed upon the most vulnerable members of our community. And so as a result of this operation, the Clark County District Attorney's Office is handling the prosecution. So the feds handing it off to the local prosecutors. And for these types of crimes, I think that's appropriate and most normal. Most of these types of charges are state charges, unless it's a much broader operation across state lines. And they could always, of course, make that charge. But we're not asking for them to overly single out this person. We're just asking that he gets the same treatment that every other American citizen who's also entitled to the presumption of innocence is getting when they're charged with these, albeit heinous crimes. So we see the U.S. State Department also responded to this. They said the Department of State is aware that Tom Artyom Alexandrovich, an Israeli citizen, was arrested in Las Vegas and given a court date for charges related to soliciting a minor. He did not claim diplomatic immunity and was released by a state judge pending a court date, which kind of. Any claims the U.S. government intervened are false. And I think that's kind of the point, is like, you didn't intervene. Like, no prosecutor, nobody in the process, state person, FBI person, Homeland Security person, North Las Vegas, Metro Las Vegas, nobody who's there or who's communicating with the prosecutors, state, county, or federal prosecutors, is saying, can we just revoke this dude's passport while he's charged with a very heinous crime? So that's the point. Obviously, you did not intervene to stop that. You just kind of let the whole system go. And we want to know who was in that line of custody of making the decision, right? The chain of custody for the decision. Who decided, actually, yeah, we're not going to invoke that and just allow this dude to exit the country. Because if you look at some of these other charges, for example, I think this one, let me see. There was one. You can see, oh, they're refreshing. All right, yeah, they're refreshing. All right, so there was another one that I had pulled up that was about an individual who was released with electronic monitoring. Okay, so minimal electronic monitoring, but released on his own recognizance, but he'll be essentially tracked or have to check in with somebody because they want to find out where he is. These are child predators based on the allegations, and so they don't just let people go willy-nilly. Now, we've got more on this person. So this came out from U.S. Attorney Chata today. She's got an interesting background here. She says a liberal district attorney and state court judge in Nevada failed to require an alleged child molester to surrender his passport, which allowed him to flee our country. And that we want to know, like, okay, well, who was that? Who just said, well, we're not going to... And we want to compare and contrast that versus their other requests for the other defendants. The Attorney General, Bondi, just called me outraged, yeah, and she also called Kash Patel, yeah. This story is catching a lot of wind. Now, the individual who fled our country should have had his passport seized by state authorities. He must be returned immediately to face justice, okay? So the U.S. Attorney in Nevada saying, Benjamin Netanyahu, send this dude back so that he can face justice. Now, we'll go through the criminal complaint here and see what's inside, but I want to thank Cigar for releasing this for us. He posted this. You can follow him over at eCigar. He says, I have obtained documents pertaining to the arrest of this Israeli government official called Tom Alexandrovich, caught up in a recent Las Vegas undercover child sex sting. We'll read it. Says Alexandrovich allegedly solicited what he believed to be a 15-year-old for intercourse. He told police he met with the FBI in Vegas, had a future meeting with the NSA, and immediately identified himself. He says, you can grab the documents over there. And he posted the link publicly for the rest of us, breakingpoints.locals.com, if you want to check it out. And so he posted these documents, and here's what they say. The undersigned make the following declaration subject to penalty of perjury that I, Mark Kohut, is a peace officer with Henderson PD, and I learned the following facts and circumstances which led me to believe that these crimes occurred at this location. Writing, here are the details of probable cause. That I learned the following facts and circumstances which led me to believe that the below named subject committed or was committing the offenses at this location on August 6, 2025. Here are the details. This is the case number, and this is the crime. Luring a minor using technology. The location, of course, and the individual is Tom Alexandrovich, date of birth, there it is. Here's an introduction. Your person is a detective currently employed, and is probably the title of his operation, with the Henderson Police Department and a member of the Nevada Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and the Child Exploitation Task Force. Your declarant is responsible for investigating a multitude of internet crimes against children and related crimes that include the exploitation and trafficking of kids. So your declarant, along with another person, the OCE or operation, conducted an undercover operation where OCE posed as a 15-year-old juvenile. This is a joint operation with CETF, ICAC, HPD, leveraging the internet to identify individuals who've got an interest in the kids. This operation utilizes known chatting and dating websites and applications. Here's the initial contact. On August 6, 2025, not long ago, an online covert employee, aka an OCE, and a member of the task force and or the Nevada Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, was connected to the internet in an online undercover capacity, participating in online activity, publicly chatting on an internet platform. Now, during the operation, a software program was used to record online activity, chats, and media identified within the internet chatting application known as Pure, and later WhatsApp, with a phone number at this address. The purpose of the undercover operation was for the fake 15-year-old to log into an application. In this case, the application was called Pure, and later WhatsApp, with a phone number here, to identify individuals who are involved with the exploitation of children. In general, a mobile application can be downloaded and installed. We know what a mobile application is. Now, it should be noted that features pertaining to various platforms and the features of one particular application platform may not include or have the same features as others. And typically, application platform users can post comments, interact, and do other things. Now, through OCE's training and experience as undercover 15-year-old, due to the nature of online applications like Pure and WhatsApp, with phone numbers like this, subjects are more likely to encourage a child to produce abuse material, formerly referred to as CP, so we call it CSAM now, saying that these platforms are being used now to coordinate these meetings, saying on or about the dates, August 6, an individual using the platforms called Pure and then transferred it over to WhatsApp with phone number so-and-so was found to have engaged in a conversation with this undercover. That chat conversation turned sexual in nature. During this online undercover communication, it was identified that this user used this platform to talk to a decoy acting as a 15-year-old female juvenile and spoke about the contact with that minor. The user later agreed to meet the decoy for contact at a predetermined meeting location, and not just any contact, the old hibbity-dibbity. The contact included bringing a prophylactive and taking the decoy to Cirque du Soleil, the 15-year-old female juvenile, 15-year-old female. So prior to meeting, photographs of the subject communicating with the decoy were obtained. They're like, can you send me a picture so I know who you are? He's like, sure. The suspect advised that they would be arriving in an Uber. Now, while the undercover was in contact with the subject and being made aware the subject may be in the area of the meeting, task force officers contacted a white adult male located in this car that was believed to be the subject in question. The subject was contacted at this, and it should be noted that Officer Hill Hijar contacted the subject, later identified as Tom Alexandrovich, while a body-worn camera was in operation and recording the contact with this dude. So it's on camera, which I'm sure will come out soon. Every attempt was made to positively identify the user that agreed to the contact with a minor prior to any contact being made by the officers. The subject was identified as Tom Alexandrovich prior to being contacted. So on August 6 at 1917 hours after making initial contact, he was placed into custody without incident. During contact, it was determined that he was in possession of a cellular device. It should be noted that the undercover attempted to make contact with the device the subject was speaking to verify the device was in fact the one determined to be in his possession. The device did not alert or sound a notification at that time. So she might be pinging it, the undercover pinging it while they're there. Is it going off? No. It's on silent or something. Alexandrovich was advised that he was being placed under arrest and transported to Henderson Police Department for processing. The located cellular device was seized and also transported to the area, where it was also later secured as evidence pending a search warrant. Due to the aforementioned facts and circumstances, I determined that based on the undercover communications being made using Pure and WhatsApp with this phone number, in addition to the fact that Alexandrovich did arrive at the location and that he matched the depiction of the subject in the communication with the decoy juvenile, based on the images of the subject it obtained while engaged in communication, so right, it's like sending some sort of pictures, that Alexandrovich was the same person in contact with the undercover using a mobile device, right? So they're just making sure it's his phone. Now, upon his arrival at the Henderson Police Department, a recorded interview with Alexandrovich was conducted, and a brief summary of that interview is as follows. On August 6, 2025, at 2000 hours, at the Henderson Police Department, Homeland Security investigator called this person and FBI special agent called this person conducted a post-arrest interview of Tom Alexandrovich, saying, here, this person used an audio recorder to record the interview, and closed-circuit video cameras simultaneously made an audio-visual recording of the interview. The duration of the interview was about 31 minutes in length. Here's the summary of his statements. The interview commenced at 2000 hours. Alexandrovich date of birth, he says, the native language is Russian, is Hebrew. He agreed to speak, fully understands English. The law enforcement, Walsh, advised Alexandrovich of his Miranda rights. Okay, now he's in custody. Now they're going to ask him questions. So at 20:07, which he waived, he says, sure, happy to talk to you. Walsh advised Alexandrovich that due to being from Israel, the Israel consulate should be notified, and Alexandrovich agreed at 20 hours, saying, well, okay, since you're Israeli, we should contact them. Alexandrovich is from Israel, and he's visiting for the Black Hat Conference. He works for the Israeli government agency, and so far has been there for 14 years. He stated that he has never been arrested. He was not familiar with the consequences of speaking or not speaking with U.S. authorities. Now, Walsh stated, he says, well, I can't give you legal advice. However, if you wanted this story to be heard, you can talk to us, right? Standard stuff. If you want to speak to us, you can, but you don't have to. Talk if you want. We read your Miranda rights, so we're good. But Alexandrovich stated he has a meeting with the NSA tomorrow, the National Security Agency. And he had met several bureau people and NSA people over the past week. Alexandrovich described the bureau agents as one white guy who was tall and bald and one black guy. You're like, who are you meeting with the NSA? He's like some white dude and black guy. Alexandrovich stated he was at the conference to learn. And stated he was in the United States 3 months ago for a crypto conference in New York City as well. He stated that he comes to the U.S. about 2 to 3 times a year, and he uses an international phone number to chat. Now, he stated he could not remember the name of the girl he was chatting with, but he had met her on the Pure application. And he stated he had photos of himself on Pure, and he could not recall if he sent photos via the application. They asked him, where are you staying? I'm currently at the Conrad Hotel, floor 53. And he says, I use the name Adam to chat on dating applications. He agreed to go to a dinner and a show with the date. And he believed, he says, that the girl was 18 years old. That was the age listed on the Pure application. And I'm not familiar with that app, but it doesn't sound good. Alexandrovich stated he felt the girl pushed him to talk about bringing a condom, yet could not remember how many times the girl pushed him. And he stated that he was embarrassed for being arrested. Now, he questioned how much bail would cost and why he was under arrest. And the agent advised him that he would be transported to the jail while under arrest due to the chats being with a girl the age of 15 and their communication of sex and a condom. So Alexandrovich stated that he would need his glasses as his contacts were in his eyes. I can't read this. He stated he had his family members' phone numbers memorized. He stated he was in shock and he needed to contact someone about his international flight back to Israel. He stated he did not know the numbers for the Israeli government, stated his family was in Israel, stated it was very important to get numbers for his flight, stated his flight is on Friday to New York, then he's going to fly back to Israel, stated his phone does not have a password, but uses his right thumbprint, and stated he needed the following numbers from his phone, all redacted. Now, he asked if he could message his family or make a call to the embassy. Walsh at the time stated that's not possible right now. He said, well, how about I take a lie detector test? I thought she was 18. The interview concluded. Now, the probable cause statement says, due to the aforementioned facts and circumstances, I determined that based on the undercover communications made on Pure and WhatsApp, and I'm sure these messages are probably pretty unequivocal, in addition to the fact that Alexandrovich did indeed arrive at the location, that he matched the description, he was talking to the decoy, same images that they got while they were communicating, and he was the same person in contact with them before the communication using his mobile device. He admitted to having been engaged in communications with the juvenile. And due to the aforementioned facts, we find that he did commit the offense of luring a minor using technology. He was transported and booked, and that's the doc. Now, charges obviously have not been filed thus far. For other people, they certainly have, but not for this guy. And we're asking ourselves about this person because this is the individual who deleted her Chata for Nevada account. This is the U.S. attorney in Nevada. And she deleted her personal account, which is very interesting. but not before a bunch of people were able to clip out this video of hers where she was making this statement as she was running for Attorney General. Here is the current U.S. Attorney of Nevada.
The radical left is burning down our country and attacking Jews in the streets, and Ilhan Omar is fanning the flames. I'm Sigal Chattah, an Israeli-born lawyer running to be America's #1 conservative attorney general. I'll stand up to Ilhan Omar and take her team to court for defunding our police, opening our borders, and teaching our kids to hate each other based on the color of their skin. I need your help. The left is pouring money into this seat so they can put more criminals on the streets. Can you chip in $25 right now? If enough patriots come together, we'll be able to build a grassroots campaign necessary to stop Ilhan Omar in her tracks. It's time that we put strong female lawyers like myself forward to make our case.
That was not a question.
All right, so we know who she is, and we're going to ask whether charges will come down for this guy or not. But there's been some weird stuff going on, and Sean King, I know who he is and his background, but there was something weird going on where he posted a bunch about this, and those posts were deleted. It was a strange thing. Grok looks like it's confirmed, saying that X voluntarily deleted the tweets under doxing policies, and so the cyber director was able to get a bunch of bad posts about him removed off the internet. Pretty strange thing that's happening. Thomas Massie was also out. He came forward today with HR 2356. He says, today, with all this going on, it would be a great day to tell your representative to co-sponsor my Dual Loyalty Disclosure Act, saying if dual citizens run for office, they should agree to disclose all countries in which they hold citizenship. Don't you agree? Pretty simple bill from Thomas Massie. So lots of questions about what's going on with the NSA, intelligence communities, Israeli intelligence, cyber directors, and all the things. Meanwhile, we've got Tulsi Gabbard came out. She's nuking security clearances for 37 new people. She said, being entrusted with the security clearance is a privilege, not a right. Those in the intelligence community who betray their oath to the Constitution and put their own interest ahead of the interest of the American people have broken the sacred trust they promised to hold. In doing so, they undermine our national security, safety and security of the American people. That is why, at the president's direction, Tulsi has directed the revocation of the security clearances of 37 current and former intelligence professionals who have abused the public trust by politicizing and manipulating the evidence. And so these people all getting canceled. The security clearance system exists to protect our classified national security information. And it's the determination of this office that certain individuals in the list have engaged in some or all of the following conduct, including politicization or weaponization of intelligence to advance personal, partisan, or non-objective agendas inconsistent with national security priorities, failure to safeguard classified information, failure to adhere to professional analytic tradecraft standards, other conduct detrimental to our trust. And so, the president has directed that effective immediately, the security clearances of the following 37 individuals are revoked. Their access to classified systems, facilities, materials, and information is terminated forthwith. Any contracts or employment with the U.S. government by these 37 individuals is hereby terminated. Any credentials held by these individuals must be surrendered to the appropriate security officials, and that's going to be a rough day for them. So here's the list of the people. And a couple of Andrews. You see the names here. A bunch of them. Gutierrez, Jowers, Prescott, Garangus, somebody's over there. Farnsworth lost his security clearance. Pfft, typical. Hardig. All right, so a bunch of them lost it. And they say, you guys must remain nonpartisan. You must be committed to the truth. You haven't done that. You betrayed your duties to America. And so now your security clearances are revoked. So interesting updates there. Shout out to Tulsi Gabbard for continuing to purge the bad actors out of our intelligence agencies. And hopefully the NSA cancels their meeting with Tom Alexandrovich. And we'll see if the Israelis do what the U.S. attorney has asked and return this guy to immediately face justice. We'll see if he comes back or not. All right, so Some other updates on the day. Let's see what else we got cooking over here, because this was another lawsuit which is capturing some attention, which has now come down. A battle now decided. This one involving a group of Jewish advocacy individuals and organizations versus a group of Muslim advocacy individuals and Palestinian advocates battling it out in the Eastern District of Virginia. Now we've got a new order that's come down from the judge saying how this whole case is going to go. And it's been a battle that's been percolating for quite some time. This is obviously happening now, the last update in August, but this has been filed way before. May 1st, 2024 is when the original complaint was filed. And here's what it looked like. It was a 49-pager. And this is a lawsuit that's brought by a bunch of individuals and groups that we've seen here before. We've talked about this organization called the National Jewish Advocacy Center. We talked about them yesterday in the flag case. We also saw this guy, David Schoen, who was the same attorney who used to work for Trump. Remember him? This fella right here. So he's involved in this lawsuit. And the National Jewish Advocacy Center also involved in it, a 501c3, saying that they're harnessing the power of the legal system to combat anti-Semitism. So they're the people who sued. And here is what they said. They wrote to the courts. We'll just hit the highlights on the complaint because the complaint is now old. And of course, it's been ruled upon. But here's the background. They said, "We are the plaintiffs. We're Maya, Aiden, Noach, Natalie, David, and a bunch of others. We're going to call ourselves," they call themselves, "the Israeli plaintiffs." Okay, so it's not me calling them that. They're calling themselves that. "Sue defendants, the Muslims for Palestine and national students." So I guess we can call it the Israelis and the Muslims or the Palestinians. Here's their introduction in this lawsuit. "When someone tells you that they're aiding and abetting terrorists, believe them. They say Hamas is a terrorist organization and they're trying to prevent Israel from maintaining relationships with its Arab neighbors." And so a lot of background. Now we get to the organization. They say American Muslims for Palestine serves as Hamas's propaganda division in the United States. Now we're asking about free speech, right? Propaganda. Can American Muslims speak about these issues, or is that Hamas propaganda that makes them a terrorist organization in America that subjects them to a lawsuit? AMP was founded from the ashes of disbanded organizations created by other Hamas officials. And the day after, on October 8th, they were prepared to respond to a call for mobilization and disseminated a manifesto. And they created a toolkit, and they support globalizing attacks on Jews. And so the plaintiffs are U.S. citizens. Her name is Miss Perezer and her boyfriend. They survived the Hamas terrorist attack. They dodged gunfire and they weaved through dead bodies on the roads. And so they suffer mental anguish because they're providing material support, these other groups, to Hamas, right? So we're suing you for that. Plaintiff, another one, Mr. Guess, is a U.S. citizen. On 10/7, his home on Kibbutz Holit was attacked. While Guess was not home, through a communal WhatsApp group chat, he witnessed friends and family members brutally murdered. And he's suffering from this. So same here, Mr. Newman, he was there. This person's a U.S. citizen. She survived. Mr. Diller, also a U.S. citizen, was over there, survived Hamas, and the rest of them. Okay, so we get the story. Now, the defendants, this is called AJP Educational Foundation. It's another 501c3. It's another nonprofit incorporated in California, doing the same thing as Norm Eisen does, Democracy Docket does, the Jewish Advocates, National Jewish Advocates Advocacy Center. Okay, they formed their 501c3s, and now they're just suing each other. So everybody forms their little 501c3s for their cause du jour, and for some reason, our society and our courts just allows everybody to come take advantage of them and duke out their 1,000-year-old conflicts in our courts, and we got to deal with it. So in a separate action, AMP is accused of being the successor to two other organizations in dodging a default judgment. And so this is another defendant, the National Students for Justice in Palestine. They say that they're using this to operate a propaganda machine on college campuses, and they need to be stopped. Okay, so we get the complaint. Here is what the judge said. In a ruling, memorandum opinion and order from the judge in the case of the Israeli plaintiffs versus the Muslim organizations, the judge writes, all right, this matter comes before us because the Muslims have filed a motion to dismiss, a bunch of them. Bazian, they sued a bunch of people individually. Osama, we've got Tahir, Zarefa, and others. The court has dispensed with oral argument as I don't need to hear from you people. Shout out to this judge. I don't need to hear it now. I'm just going to rule on your pleadings. I don't need to hear you guys scream about this for 6 hours. These matters have been fully briefed and are now ripe for disposition. And so considering all of this together and the parties' filings, the court grants the motions to dismiss. So the Jewish lawsuit fails. Plaintiffs, Maya, Aiden, and the others, they call themselves the Israeli plaintiffs. They bring this 2-count action against the Muslims. They say the Muslim student organizations have aided and abetted Hamas, and that's a violation of the Anti-Terrorism Act. The amended complaint says there's a history of material support for them, and there's a series of events, and they just keep supporting them. So here's what the judge says. On October 8th, 1997, the U.S. Department of State designated Hamas a terrorist group. Hamas engages in terrorism, it relies on terrorism, and they get billions in dollars in aid from supporters around the world. It's a lot. In 1988, Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood founded the Palestinian Committee, a small network of organizations to serve Hamas. In 1993, the FBI wiretapped a meeting between the Palestine Committee and Hamas operatives. The meeting revealed that the Palestine Committee directly coordinated with Hamas to help it achieve its goals. Okay, so we've got now cooperation with terrorists documented as meeting participants discussed how to improve the activities in support of Hamas and how to shield them from being designated a terrorist organization. Now, the organizations that made up the Palestine Committee included here these other groups: the Holy Land Foundation, the Islamic Association for Palestine, the IAP, the American Muslim Society, all these groups, okay, gobs of them. For instance, Khalid Mashal, the former head of Hamas's political bureau and current leader of Hamas's diaspora office, founded the IAP. So lots of overlap too. Now, HLF and IFP, their fundraising for and in collaboration with Hamas was eventually discovered, and they were found criminally and civilly liable for providing material support to Hamas, like these people or these organizations and the individuals related to those organizations. In 2001, this was designated HLF, a specially designated global terrorist. 5 of its leaders were convicted of providing material support to Hamas. These other people were found civilly liable of supporting terrorists, and these groups subsequently dissolved. So we're not talking about them. The amended complaint asserts that the creation and dissolution of these organizations has become a pattern. So the Israeli plaintiffs say that this charitable group was founded by Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood and subsequently dissolved following the settlement period, and more. Now, the complaint continues. They say, well, what's happening here is they're resurrecting these groups. There was an original enterprise that got dissolved. Now there's significant overlap between these groups, and they are committing effective propaganda, saying, well, this core leadership, they were part of the other group and part of the other group. Now, here they give us the connections. Okay, Rafiq now serves as a tax preparer. This guy previously worked as a secretary general. Like, they just left one organization and they all came over here, and the judge is articulating it all right here. Yeah, it's true. He collaborated with them. Finally, this guy, a former active member, chaired the convention, right? The judge is saying there's all sorts of connections here. You're right. There's overlap out the wazoo. Plaintiffs allege that AMP, so the Israeli plaintiffs say that AMP is effectively a reincarnation of this, and they're just changing their goals, kind of like Hunter Biden, creating all his shell companies. Says AMP has become more cunning and purposeful in their efforts, and they've made themselves into a mouthpiece for Hamas. It says that the defendants here and all their social activity are supporting and propagandizing Hamas. The judge is giving us a lot of details. And we've got, of course, the terrorist attack. On 10/7, the deadliest single day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, Hamas terrorists killed approximately 1,200 Israelis, Americans, and many others in a horrific day. The terrorists tortured, butchered, and arred a bunch of people. It was horrific. Plaintiffs were among the initial victims. They were forced to evacuate their homes. Within hours of the attack, the leader of Hamas called for resistance abroad. 3 days later, Mashal, the founder of IAP, called for global supporters of Hamas to, quote, be part of this battle. And he asserted that through a terror by propaganda strategy, Hamas was going to exploit The international community's response to civilian casualties generate global condemnation of Israel, hamstring IDF operations, and protect Hamas under the guise of civilian safety. This strategy was employed to sway people, and this was the first wave of propaganda. Then the Israeli plaintiffs say there was a second wave of propaganda. Within hours, there was a disinformation campaign, and another defendant who's being sued here, they released their Day of Resistance toolkit. And the toolkit says that the resistance has taken occupation soldiers hostage, fired thousands of rockets. Today we witness a historic win as unshakable responsibility to join the call for mass mobilization. Okay, so go support Hamas, a designated terrorist group. That's a problem. So the NSJP calls for its members and its allies not only to support, but to struggle alongside with our people back home and, get involved. The toolkit goes on, says it's part of this movement. And the Israelis say that neither Hamas nor any other terrorist organizations had ever used paragliders until this day. They also say that they endorse this statement, the Tofan al-Aqsa statement, talking about victory or martyrdom and an intifada, right? And they're very aggressive with it. Now, the amended complaint says the toolkit is an action-oriented memo, and they're engaging in public relations services. The crux of their complaint is this: that the defendants fund and act as Hamas's public relations division. And so they're suing to stop them. They say that they organized a day of resistance to coincide with a day of rage, and that they're terrorizing students at all these universities. They say that they're continuing to provide ongoing public relations and support. And okay, so I think we understand the nature of their complaint and the fact that they're being recognized. Now the judge, okay, thanks, all the background. Now, here's the procedural background. We are now dealing with motions to dismiss this lawsuit. The rules say you have to state a claim. You may attack the complaint on its face when it fails to allege facts saying that I have jurisdiction over this case at all. And there are different standards here as well about personal jurisdiction. But let's see how the judge applies it in his analysis. We've got the rules out of the way. He says, okay, as an initial matter, this court recognizes that what happens to plaintiffs in the October 7th attacks was horrific, no doubt. And that should be undisputed. Get that out of the way. Unequivocally true. Yet that is not the question before the court. The court must address whether plaintiffs, the Israeli plaintiffs, have alleged sufficient facts and legal basis to hold these defendants liable for the acts of terrorism. Now, at this stage, the court cannot find that the Israeli plaintiffs have met their burden, and so case dismissed. But it may be that they can further amend their complaint to assert more particularized facts, okay, not conjecture, not speculation, that is an actual claim. Although the court dismisses the complaint, will allow you to refile, which they probably will. A full discussion of the arguments is below. Here's what the judge rates. The court has pending before it 7 motions advancing various jurisdictional merits. Now, the defendants, all, these Muslim groups, argue that this court lacks jurisdiction over them. All the defendants say this court lacks jurisdiction because they're filing under the Terrorism Act. And they lack standing. And so the judge is going to go through each of them in turn. He says the plaintiffs assert their claims under the Terrorist Act, which has a nationwide service of process provision that authorizes jurisdiction. And we correctly note that service of process provides jurisdiction, and so lots of legalities here. Now, to begin with, each defendant challenging personal jurisdiction has minimum contact with the United States. In fact, this guy lives and works in California and works as a liaison, and so that's fine. That's satisfied. The court must then determine whether challenging jurisdiction is properly allowed under the Terrorist Act. And they don't argue that service was effective. And so we'll fast forward through this argument. Now, he next argues that leaving the summons, so they just came and when they got sued, they just threw the complaint at his wife. He says, that's not service of me. You have to serve me. My wife's not being sued. So we're fighting over service. Okay. Now, with respect to the Israeli plaintiffs and their terrorist claims, the defendants say that service of process does not apply and the court lacks jurisdiction. Writing, here it's clear that these claims arise from a common nucleus of operative facts that apply to both claims. They're saying it's related to the 10/7 attacks. And so the court will exercise its discretion to consider this claim. Next, we want to talk about subject matter jurisdiction over the plaintiff's ATS claims. And lots of technical stuff here. Let's fast forward through it. Nestle's going through it, this other case law. Very detailed decision here from the judge. We want to get to some so whats. Here, it's important to frame their injuries when and where they occurred. The injuries occurred in Israel on October 7, 2023. Thus, in examining their claim, we must analyze whether the conduct is meant to be governed. Here, because their injuries occurred on 10/7, the court must examine their allegations about their conduct in the United States before that occurred in Israel. And it's clear from even a cursory review that the plaintiffs focus on not what they did in relation to 10/7, but they're only complaining about what they did after the attack. And by contrast, allegations about this say that they're supporting of Hamas that they were supporting them prior to the 10/7 attacks is very limited. Specifically, in the allegations about their conduct, they say that the defendants provide ongoing support to Hamas after, and their mouthpiece after. Okay, it's all after the fact. So how did they aid and abet Hamas to commit the terrorist attack? They're not even alleging that. They don't even allege that they planned, prepared, funded, or anything. And so these public relations allegations are just vague and conclusory, and they can't satisfy your burden that there's a significant or sufficient connection between your cause of action and the damages that you're seeking. Now, your amended complaint focuses on stuff that happened after 10/7. And that could not have assisted with the initial attack. In fact, the Israeli plaintiffs do not even allege sufficient facts to plausibly show that the defendants had prior knowledge of the attacks. And so the court finds that this inference is not reasonable and declines to draw an inference, which was that they asked this court to say that all defendants knew about the attack because they responded to the attack, which had a clip art style graphic of a paraglider. So their immediate response had a paraglider. They're like, oh, they knew, like how they know it's paraglider. Like nobody knew it's paraglider. So they knew, they were part of it. So they argue that there was coordination between these groups and Hamas, and they reference international law. But in short, even though they allege domestic conduct, almost all of their allegations relate to after 10/7. They fail to show how any of this domestic conduct is relevant to how they assisted on 10/7. And unlike in other cases, including the execution of a contract, we need to know what is the actual harm and sufficiently connect the two. Here, they failed to establish such a link, and so the court lacks jurisdiction. And so in the absence of this factual link, we have to dismiss the claim. Because their allegations about public relations activity fails, the other claims must fail. And so in summation, the judge writes, the cases and the claims will be dismissed. In sum, while the court has personal jurisdiction over the defendants, it lacks subject matter over the claims. Moreover, they failed to state a claim under the ATA, and so for the foregoing reasons, all of these motions to dismiss are granted. Without prejudice, they can file a second amended complaint. I'm sure they will, but Rossi D. Alston dismissing this case, saying, you got to have some more concrete claims. You can't just be suing everybody, saying that you're propaganda pieces for each other, because I'm sure the Palestinians could just return back and just say, well, you're propagandizing for the Israeli government or whatever. And everybody can make those claims, of course, pointing to different facets, but that's what we've got on that one. So we'll see if a secondary complaint comes in. I expect that it will, and we'll keep our eye on this one and more. All right, now one final update on the day, and then we'll hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this. But here's another really horrific drop. Senator Chuck Grassley now reveals new documents explaining that the Biden-Harris administration placed tens of thousands of migrant children with unvetted sponsors. Didn't do any recommended home studies, just shoved these kids right into whoever's household. And that's obviously concerning. And so Grassley posted this and released these documents. We'll go through them. We'll see what's inside. And This was in response to a demand from Grassley, so we'll see what they wrote. But here's what Grassley summarizes for us. He says, Chuck Grassley's making public documents showing that Harris placed over 11,000 migrant children with unvetted sponsors who were not the child's parent or legal guardian. And they did not conduct home studies for over 79,000 migrant children under the age of 12 because they trafficked the children into our country. The Trump administration provided Grassley, thank you, Trump administration, with the data in response to his oversight requests, which were stonewalled by the previous administration. And we got the documents, and so let's just get into them. Here's what Grassley shared with us. Now, this is in response to a request from Grassley. You can see the guy who wrote this is Andrew Gradison. He's the acting assistant secretary for the Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And he's responding to Grassley. Grassley said, can you give me some information on this? He says, here you go, Chuck. Thank you for your request for information about the unaccompanied children. I appreciate the opportunity to give you some details here. Here are the bullet points. On April 22nd, the Department of Health and Human Services referenced via a post on social media that we were reviewing 65,000 notices of concerns that had gone unaddressed between 2021 and 2024, the horrific Biden years. Now, as defined in the law, this is an instrument used by home study or post-release services, and other providers to document and notify of concerns that arise after a child is released from custody. So we have this tool that we use to go investigate the safety and sanctity of a children's environment. These notices may range from required change of address notices to more serious concerns raised about missing children or victimization of children. Now, the home study providers must submit a notice of concern for many areas if they identify these things: human trafficking, abuse, abandonment, neglect, contact or involvement with organized crime, disappearances, fraud, or other things. You must submit those no later than 24 hours after the problem happens. Now, apparently there's 65,000 of them that have not been unaddressed, okay? 65,000 of those very serious concerns lodged, nothing happened. In an effort to accept referrals from Homeland in a timely fashion as required by the statute, we activated 14 EISs to provide temporary bed capacity. And here's what we've got. Saying, we have an obligation to follow immigration judges' orders, and a home study is also an in-depth investigation that needs to be done. It includes living conditions and investigates a particular sponsor. And a bunch of things. You can kind of get the gist of what is required there. Now, in some cases, the provider will recommend a home study. And over the course of the previous administration, they revised the policies a bunch. And one of the policies say that you have to have home studies in certain circumstances. If the child is a victim of a severe form of trafficking, if they've got disabilities, if they're a victim of abuse, if they present risk of an abuse. Now, they have to do these studies, and in response to your request for information about this, we don't aggregate this data because they probably don't want to know. If you're admitted to care, they have to do a screening to make sure you're okay. In addition, providers screen children for concerns, and then they make notices about those. Now, finally, in response to your request, he's given us a lot of background here. Enclosed, here is the comprehensive data. We've included summary tables and appendices. In conclusion, this is all of the data to the best of our ability. And so let's see what's inside. It says, here is the breakdown. From October 1 to September 30th, ORR cared for 468,000 unaccompanied alien children. They've cared for 21,000 unaccompanied alien children for that time period, and most from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and more. Now, you see a lot of these charts, and we don't want to spend a lot of time going through charts, but sponsor categories, fathers, let's see, sponsor categories 2, lots of details. Let's see what Chuck Grassley says in summary. So he writes, he says, in summation, According to the data from January 21 to 25, 11,400 migrant children were placed with unvetted sponsors, not fingerprinted, no background check. Law says you got to do that, but they didn't. During that same period, the Biden administration did not conduct home studies for 79,000 migrant children under the age of 12. And they ignored this rule, failed to conduct home studies for about 10% of the migrant children who were just being skimmed off the top for trafficking purposes. So Chuck Grassley leading the way on it. We're happy to see it. And of course, this illegal immigration and human trafficking is a giant problem. We want to know what the Democrats' solution is. And so Mayor Michelle Wu from Boston said, we're going to start with this solution right here.
Everybody, hoo-hoo-ya, hoo-hoo-ya.
All right, that's all we can take. So we made it 19 seconds. I thought we could go to 20, but we can't. So that's what the Democrats are doing over there. That's their protest. Dissent is patriotic. And listening to a woman melt your eardrums is also patriotic, according to them. John Kennedy came out today and he said, I've got some pretty simple advice for dealing with the Democrats, and here's what it is.
With us now, Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Are Republicans having fun these days?
I wouldn't describe it as fun. I enjoy my job, but I'm not sure that fun is the right term. I think we're winning more than we're losing. Some of that is due to Republicans, but a lot of it, as you pointed out, Leland, is due to Democrats. As I've said before, you never interfere with your opponent when he's kicking his own ass.
Ooh. Good advice there from Senator Kennedy. You just step out of the way, let them continue to keep hitting themselves, and move on to other things. All right, so my friends, what a beautiful day it has been. Thank you for joining us. If you're just getting here, quick recap. We talked about this Israeli cyber director who has officially not been charged yet. He has been arrested, but the charges have not come down. We'll see if they ultimately do. We know the U.S. attorney from Nevada is calling this dude back. He says he must be returned. We'll see what the Israeli government does, or if this guy makes it back, or if charges even get filed, if a criminal complaint even gets filed, because it's been filed against basically everybody else who was rounded up there. I haven't validated all 7 of them, but the 5 that I looked at were all charged with a formal criminal complaint. We'll see if he gets one. Don't hold your breath. But shout out to Cigar for giving us the documents here. You can see exactly what happened. Sounds like a very standard sting operation, and we'll keep our eye on that one. We also talked about this lawsuit battle that's occurring between Jewish groups and Muslim groups that's resulting in a dismissal and kind of just a lot of wasted time about these conflicts, duking it out in our courts, and that's that story. We've also got the Judiciary Committee, Chuck Grassley, releasing this report saying that thousands, tens of thousands of individuals have been minors trafficked into homes without any home studies or vetting at all. And we'll see if there's repercussions for the people who traffic those kids. Of course, now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. And thank you for being here. Thanks for sending in some of this love. I saw some great donos come in. And thank you to our amazing mods and meme smiths who are modding the fort down for us and keeping things nice and orderly around here. We very much appreciate it. We got some new membos coming in too. Amazing. Happy Tuesday in the house, my friends. Happy Tuesday indeed. Hey, and thank you, Donut, for that one. What a nice kitty. What a nice, look at those butterflies too. How peaceful with a cup of coffee. Off label. Says Loudoun County school suspends 3 boys who complained about a girl, claiming she's a boy, recording them in a locker room. Wonder who's going on a Terry list. Interesting story there, off label. Loudoun County, 3 boys. There was a girl claiming she's a boy, recording them in a locker room. That doesn't sound appropriate at all. Off label podcast right next door. Check them out. What's up, Tim Jake? Tim Jake. Today, a 10th Circuit 3-judge panel enjoined New Mexico's Waiting Period Act, requiring a 7-day wait to buy a gun. That sounds like a good one. This district court found the right to acquire does not impede, keep, or bear, and the panel did not agree. That looks like a good one. That seems like a good one. Tim Jake 78. I haven't seen that one. The case number is 24, 21, 21. Amazing. Maybe we'll hit that tomorrow. Good one. Thank you, Tim Jake. We're looking for good cases to cover. Mock Schnell, what's up? Bringing in 20 new membos. Liza Jean is in the house. Welcome. Mock Schnell, thanks for bringing in 20 friends. Bread Pitt is here. Aha. What's up, Swan Song? Green King Dog. We got Ann Donnelly, Michael Thompson, Kingrich, Kent Cook, Anthony Bray, Irish, CMDPO, Christopher Howell, E-Spirit Fleck. What's up, Iru? John Figueria. We got the other G Gax, Bob Hing, Frat Term, and James Kirk. All gifted membos in the house, courtesy of Mock Schnell. Thank you, Mock Schnell. Welcome 20 new membo friends. We'll see you in the after party. El Dorado says APAC is not illegal. APAC is not illegal? No, it's not. No, they operate openly in the United States and they fund a lot of Congress. JLJ2. Say Alexandrovich like Alexandrovich. Like that. Alexandrovich. Alexandrovich. How's that? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. Thank you for spelling it out for me so I can work on my Russian accent. It sounds way cooler than, Alexandrovich. Alexandrovich. It's good. Sharpie guy. So I'm wondering if all the Jewish citizens believe what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, or is he just special? This smells like fish rot. It does stink. This one stinks for sure. Yeah, he's one of these things is not like the others. Okay, one of these things is not getting criminal charges, is what it looks like. So, I think that a lot of people think what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I don't think I'd single out the Jewish people. I'm sure the Muslims also think that too. A lot of, Catholics and Christians. And I think one of the guys who was arrested was, Bonnie said, a reverend or something somewhere. So it's like, oh gosh. A lot of people think what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but felonies don't stay there. They stay there, but they'll follow you. They'll follow you around. Sheila the Pooh. Thank you, Sheila. 10 new membos coming in. Grateful to have our new friends. Sheila Pooh bringing in 10 friends. AI Comedy Channel. What's up, Richard Dean? We got Official Rogue ENT, Granny Joe, Smokin's here, Scott John MCA, Mr. Fifth, Doogie Man, Louis the Pup, and Kobe's in the house. Gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila the Pooh. A million hugs to you. Thank you, Sheila. Hope your week is just beautiful. Granny Joe. What's up? Hey, thank you for the gifted membership. I appreciate it. Granny Joe, thank you for being a membo, for getting gifted a membo. Thanks for being in the chat, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Granny Joe, for sending some love in. Ellie, 2437, what's up? Thank you for becoming a membo. We'll see you on the after party coming up here in just a minute. Thanks for signing up. Jay Marino, BSD. Jay Marino? Do I know you? I can't wait to hear how security clearance is a right, not a privilege. Without a security clearance, those humps will be applying to Starbucks tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that a lot of people wave around their security clearance. Like it's like access, right? I have this clearance, so I can represent you. I can get certain information that other lawyers can't get because I'm special. I've got a security clearance. Now, revoked. And by the way, this is a true thing. I think Mark Zaid, he's like a Democrat super lawyer. And I think he got his security clearance lost, and I think he's suing over that. So they'll sue, no doubt. What's up? This one from Curtis. Curtis. What a nice bird that is. Curtis Bartle, what's up? Bringing in 5 membos. Thank you, Curtis Bartle. What's up? Chubby Chick coming in here. We got BDE 360, Jamar Barnhill, Jama Barnhill. We got David Moktloff and D. Maurier in the house, courtesy of Curtis Bartle. Bringing in 5 new membos. Thank you, Curtis, for doing that. And Jay Marino says the New Jersey hostage held by Hamas should be added as a plaintiff. That should fix the cause of action problem. So there's still a New Jersey hostage that's there. And the damage, and then add her, and then the damages could still be being actively applied, like the attack is still ongoing, kind of a thing, because they're offering support. We'll see if they do. They'll probably amend their complaint. It's not a bad idea. They might do that. Rick D, in regard to the illegal truck driver, we talked a lot about this morning. So this morning we had 2 good segments on the member stream. We had the U-turn, a lot of background on that. The U-turn illegal alien, horrific case. And we also talked about the drunk deputy AG in Rhode Island, which was a lot of fun today. And Ukraine stuff. It was a lot of fun. But hey, Rick sharing this one. In regard to the illegal truck driver, yeah, he apparently answered just 2 of 12 verbal questions, accurately identifying 1 of 4 highway signs. And he also drove, I think it was a 36-ton truck, semi, onto a 6-ton limit bridge. Signs, he just drove right, wrecked the whole bridge. And they were given illegal, given driver's licenses. On July 15th, Washington State issued him a driver's license, CDL. They're not eligible for that. California did the same thing. They're not eligible for that. They're investigating the issuance of this to determine if it was issued in accordance with federal regulations. Answer, it wasn't. That's the whole point of their sanctuary policies, is to create environments that allow them to not follow the law. They've been getting away with it forever, and now people are looking and noticing how disgusting it is to have illegal aliens who can't even read our street signs flipping U-turns, resulting in 3 dead people who are driving on a van to just make their way to the next event. Fred Pedamonte, wow, says Johnny was spellbound with the Israeli Muslim order. He sat and watched the entire segment. FYI, Oleg Zandrovich is the head of the Israeli cybersecurity and the intelligence. Yes, I know, it's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. What's up, Fred? Good to see you, man. What a handsome pup, too. Looking good, man, looking good. Thanks for watching the show with Man's Best Friend. We also had, Chicken Patty says Tom Alexandrovich was trending on X for like 1 minute and it was gone. Yeah, no, it was. And they're just like deleting stuff. It's crazy what's going on. So, yeah, we'll see if anything ultimately happens. I think probably not, but we'll, of course, keep our eye on that. So, my friends, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us on this lovely Tuesday. We're going to head over to our members only after party. And we'd love to have you come join us. We're going to debrief, see what else is cooking on the day. But of course, we're going to be back tomorrow to get into it again. Want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths who mod the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly out there. Big shout outs to John McGarvey and Donut for clipping for us on the day. Thanks to K Bean, Carrie B. We got Neuro D, Janik, and Dog Digger, and our friends Jigam, Elliot, and Just Rhonda helping to keep this place nice and beautiful. But we'll pause here for the evening, my friends. We're going to go over to our after party. YouTube members, stick around. I'll drop a link in the chat. Locals, friends, hang tight. We'll be right back. But we'll pause here for the evening. Thank you for joining us. Of course, we're coming back tomorrow, and we're going to get into it again. But in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are watching the watchers shine in the light. Watching the watchers defending what's right. Watching the watchers. answers.